You think you understand WWE's power structure? You think the McMahon dynasty rose exactly how the media told you it did? Think again. Because what you're about to hear will shatter everything you thought you knew about the inner workings of WWE, about its relationships, its politics, and the carefully curated image of its most powerful family. A former WWE main eventer, someone who stood under the spotlight, who held championship gold, who had Vince McMahon's ear, has come forward with a confession that could have rewritten wrestling history. His story doesn't just shake the surface. It hits the very core of WWE's legacy. And at the center of this seismic revelation? Stephanie McMahon. Yes, the same Stephanie who would go on to become a business mogul and marry Triple H. But according to this source, whom we'll call the Confessor, everything could have gone differently. This isn't clickbait. This isn't fabricated drama. This is a real account from someone who was there, who lived it, and who now has nothing to lose by telling the truth. Years ago, in the heart of WWE's legendary Attitude Era, this superstar had it all: fame, money, creative freedom, and full backstage access. He wasn't a mid-carder chasing clout. He was the future. And with that position came proximity to the most powerful family in wrestling. That's where Stephanie enters the picture. The Confessor describes her not as the entitled, silver spoon figure many believed her to be, but as a sharp, engaged, business-savvy young woman already commanding respect in creative meetings. They grew close. And eventually, he did something that would change his entire life: he asked her out. This wasn't some reckless backstage flirtation. According to him, it was weeks in the making. He agonized over the decision, knowing the risks, knowing who she was. The setting? A euphoric night after a show in Philadelphia, a city deeply tied to WWE's legacy. Everyone was riding the post-show high. And in a quiet moment, he finally asked. And here's the twist that changes everything: Stephanie didn't say no. According to the Confessor, she was flattered. She considered it. They even talked about what it might mean. For one moment in time, there was a very real chance the course of WWE's history could have been altered. Imagine if she'd said yes. No McMahon-Helmsley era. No marriage to Triple H. No rise of the game through the ranks of creative power. It's chilling how different things could have turned out. But the story didn't end there. Stephanie ultimately declined his offer, not because she didn't like him, not because she didn't consider the possibility, but because she had reportedly been warned. Advised. Possibly by Vince McMahon himself. The message? Romantic entanglements with talent were off limits. She was being groomed, not just as a McMahon, but as the future of the company. Her personal life? It had to serve the business. And the moment she turned him down, everything began to unravel. According to the Confessor, his career took a sudden and undeniable hit. Title shots? Gone. Creative input? Ignored. Push? Halted. In his words, it was like a light switch flipped. No one ever told him outright that it was because of Stephanie, but the timing was too sharp, too exact to ignore. One romantic gesture had triggered a corporate retaliation. And now, let's address the elephant in the room: Triple H. Because once you hear this timeline, once you understand the sequence of events, the whole narrative around Triple H and Stephanie McMahon begins to look calculated. Suspicious. The Confessor claims his conversation with Stephanie happened in early 1999. Not long after, Stephanie and Triple H began an on-screen storyline romance. That storyline eventually bled into real life. And by 2003, they were married. Was Triple H's pursuit of Stephanie genuine love? Or was it a masterstroke of political strategy? Let's be honest, his career soared after that relationship began. Main events, championships, creative control, and eventually an executive title that placed him at the top of WWE's corporate structure. Meanwhile, the Confessor was quietly shown the door. Banished from the spotlight. Forgotten. Could it be that marrying into the McMahon family wasn't just advantageous, it was essential? The Confessor's story isn't just about one man's missed chance. It's a window into how WWE really works. How relationships, power, and politics are intertwined. And here's what's truly infuriating, the wrestling media has ignored it. The interview aired 3 weeks ago on an independent podcast. And except for a few brave outlets, the big names stayed silent. Why? Because WWE controls more than just the ring. They control access, narratives, reputations. And no one wants to risk losing their seat at the table. But this silence? It's not just cowardice. It's complicity. The Confessor's story is more than just scandal, it's truth. And it matters. It speaks to every wrestler who's ever been warned, every career that's been throttled, every relationship that's been sacrificed for corporate optics. And let's not forget Stephanie McMahon herself. Because the Confessor didn't speak with anger. He spoke with respect. He described her as intelligent, thoughtful, and deeply aware of the cage she was growing up in. A woman raised in power but cut off from freedom. Forced to question every motive, every friendship, every feeling. His words painted a portrait of a woman struggling not with ego, but with isolation. That's what makes this story so human. So tragic. Because it's not just about who got pushed or who got buried. It's about what's lost when real emotion collides with empire. The Confessor had feelings. Stephanie had doubts. But in WWE, love is politics. And hearts break in silence. The bigger picture? This isn't an isolated story. It's a pattern. How many other stars have been warned off? How many careers destroyed for crossing invisible lines? How many decisions made in boardrooms, not because of merit, but because of bloodline? If the Confessor's story is true, and everything we've seen suggests it is, then Triple H's rise to power isn't just a success story. It's a controversy. It casts a shadow over the entire WWE hierarchy. This is the part WWE doesn't want you to see. The part the media won't report. The truth that sits just behind the curtain, waiting to be discovered. And now the door is open. You can help keep it open. Share this story. Support independent wrestling journalism. Demand transparency. And above all, remember that behind every headline is a human story. The Confessor's courage has started something. And this is just the beginning. The Confessor's interview may have started as a personal story, but its implications ripple across decades of WWE history. Because when you pull back the curtain on this one moment, this one denied date, this single act of vulnerability, you reveal an entire culture that thrives on control, silence, and sacrifice. And that culture has a name, WWE. You see, WWE doesn't just script the drama inside the ring. It scripts the real lives of its performers, especially when it comes to who they can love, trust, or even be seen with. And in Stephanie McMahon's case, her romantic life wasn't just her own. It was a chess piece in a billion-dollar empire. According to the Confessor, she was groomed from the beginning. Not just to be a public face, not just to lead the brand, but to be untouchable. A McMahon wasn't meant to date a wrestler. That would create chaos, open the door to power shifts, and challenge the structure Vince McMahon spent decades perfecting. Stephanie wasn't being protected, she was being preserved. Now let's revisit the timeline. The Confessor approaches her in early 1999. He's respectful. Honest. He gets turned down, not harshly, but firmly. Then, Triple H steps in. Within the same year, he begins an on-screen romance with Stephanie. That romance, initially kayfabe, becomes real. Coincidence? Or did Triple H observe, calculate, and strike at just the right time? It's not an accusation. It's a question. But it's a question that echoes through every single achievement in his career afterward. Every title. Every promo. Every backstage promotion. What if his greatest win wasn't in the ring, but behind the scenes? And what if Stephanie, aware of what happened to the confessor, chose Triple H not just out of attraction, but out of caution? Out of obligation? Because in a world where personal freedom is treated as a liability, sometimes even love becomes transactional. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is corporate reality. We've seen it before. In Hollywood. In politics. And yes, in pro wrestling. When family dynasties control the pipeline of opportunity, merit takes a back seat. Connections become everything. And crossing the wrong line, romantic or otherwise, can mean the death of your career. Let's go back to the confessor. He didn't go public for revenge. He didn't name names. He didn't throw dirt. He told the truth. And what makes this revelation so powerful is that he didn't just speak about his heartbreak, he spoke about the cost. About what it meant to be punished for a feeling. For a moment of honesty. He spoke about watching his opportunities dry up, one by one. About hearing the silence in meetings that used to welcome him. About seeing his momentum freeze. All because he expressed interest in a woman he respected. A woman who, in another world, might have said yes. The tragedy isn't just what happened to him. It's that no one talked about it. That for years, the wrestling media, hungry for ratings but terrified of retaliation, chose to stay silent. They gave you puff pieces. They gave you highlight reels. They gave you everything except the truth. But now the truth is out. And it begs a larger question. How many other stories are out there? How many careers were ended not by injury, or lack of talent, but by politics? How many wrestlers were benched because they dated the wrong person? Or said the wrong thing? Or simply existed in the wrong space at the wrong time? What makes this story different is that it's not just about victimhood. It's about control. About the invisible hand guiding who succeeds and who disappears. And at the heart of that system is a family that operates above accountability. Triple H might be one of the greatest of all time. No one is denying his legacy. But if even a part of that legacy was built on personal access instead of pure merit, what does that mean for the stars who never got the same shot? It means wrestling, as we know it, isn't just entertainment. It's empire building. It's power, dressed in spandex, hidden behind stage lights. But now, thanks to one man's courage, that illusion has started to crack. He didn't have to speak. He could have stayed silent, like so many others. But he didn't. And in doing so, he gave wrestling fans something rare, truth. Not the scripted kind. Not the marketed kind. But the raw kind, the kind that shakes the foundation of everything we thought we knew. And now, the ball is in your court. You, yes, you, have the power to amplify this story. To share it. To ask questions. To hold the powers that be accountable for the reality they've spent decades trying to keep hidden. Because behind every push, every title run, every WrestleMania moment, there's a story like this one. Quiet. Forgotten. Buried. Until now. The confessor's revelation isn't just a scandal, it's a warning. That in WWE, your heart isn't yours. Your fate isn't in your hands. And love? Love can be the deadliest move of all. As Paul Triple H Levesque continues to serve as the creative head of WWE, praised for revitalizing storytelling and pushing new stars, there's an undercurrent of discomfort growing within the locker room. Quiet murmurs. Backstage whispers. What if the man running the show didn't just earn his spot, but married into it? For years, fans debated whether Triple H's meteoric rise was fueled by his in-ring ability or his strategic alliance with the McMahon family. But now, with the confessor's story out in the open, that debate takes on a whole new weight. Because if one man's romantic interest in Stephanie was enough to destroy his career, what does that say about the man who succeeded by securing a long-term relationship with her? It raises hard questions. Not about Triple H's talent, his resume speaks for itself, but about the ethics of advancement in a company where love can be both a weapon and a career strategy. It forces us to confront the possibility that WWE's upper echelon isn't strictly merit-based, but filtered through a lens of family loyalty, corporate image, and unspoken rules. The Confessor's account reveals that the McMahon family was more than just WWE's royal bloodline. They were the gatekeepers to opportunity. And now, one of those gatekeepers sits at the helm of creative, holding the power to make, or break, careers with a single decision. That's not just power. That's unchecked power. And for the stars currently working under that system, it's a chilling reminder that history could repeat itself. That dating the wrong person, speaking too freely, or simply being on the outside of the McMahon circle could cost them everything. Let's ask the question nobody in the wrestling media dares to ask: if Triple H learned from the Confessor's downfall, did he use that knowledge to build his empire? And if so, how many others have remained silent, watching the pattern unfold but too afraid to speak? Because the consequences are real. We've seen them. Talent suddenly depushed without explanation. Rising stars mysteriously sidelined. Storylines cut short. Careers derailed. On the surface, these moments are dismissed as creative direction or budget cuts. But beneath the corporate lingo, is there something more insidious happening? Is WWE still operating with the same invisible boundaries, where personal closeness to power determines professional success? And if so, what does that mean for the next generation of talent? For every wrestler currently trying to earn their spot, the message from the Confessor's story is clear: you can be great. You can be loved by fans. You can be respected in the locker room. But if you cross a line the company never told you existed, your career could be erased overnight. That's not just unfair. It's dangerous. It breeds paranoia. It silences authenticity. And it creates a culture where no one knows where the landmines are until they step on one. Now let's look at the broader implications. Triple H, now an executive with enormous influence, is shaping the future of WWE. But if his own journey to the top was shaped by calculated relationships and quiet political plays, what blueprint is he leaving behind? Is he empowering stars who earn it? Or grooming the next generation to play the same game he did? It's hard not to notice the eerily similar patterns: favoritism toward those who align with the company narrative, aggressive handling of dissent, and carefully controlled access to top creative opportunities. It's not just about being talented, it's about being safe. Being loyal. Being useful. And while Triple H may present himself today as a progressive force, the Confessor's story forces us to confront a more uncomfortable reality. That his rise was paved over the buried opportunities of others. That his relationship, lauded as one of wrestling's great love stories, may also be one of its most strategic maneuvers. That's the legacy this story threatens to rewrite. But the most unsettling part? This story is likely just the tip of the iceberg. If one man was silenced for falling in love, how many others were told who they could be, what they could feel, and who they had to become just to survive? The Confessor's courage could be the start of something bigger. A reckoning. A long overdue audit of how WWE operates, not just inside the ring, but behind the scenes where lives are shaped, careers are broken, and destinies are decided. Already, there are rumblings. Independent podcasters. Anonymous tweets. Leaked DMs from former employees. There are others. People watching closely. People who saw what happened. People who might finally step forward. Because what's become clear is this: the wrestling world is tired of being spoon-fed fairy tales. It's tired of smiling power couples and whitewashed timelines. Fans want the truth. Wrestlers want justice. And executives? They want silence. But the silence is breaking. If the Confessor's story spreads, if it gets the attention it deserves, it could be the domino that topples a carefully controlled empire. And if that happens, WWE will have to answer for more than just one buried romance. They'll have to answer for a culture that values power over people. Loyalty over honesty. Strategy over sincerity. And the wrestling world? It may never be the same. So now you know. One decision. One conversation. One moment behind closed doors changed everything, not just for the Confessor, but for the WWE as we know it today. And for the first time, that moment has been dragged out of the shadows and placed squarely in front of the fans. What started as a story about rejection has become a revelation about control. It's about how WWE, the company millions adore, operates like a kingdom. With royalty. With exiles. And with one unspoken rule: the closer you get to the throne, the more dangerous the game becomes. The Confessor's story isn't just brave, it's damning. It exposes the invisible chains wrapped around every WWE superstar: perform, obey, don't ask questions, and never, ever fall in love with someone the company wants to protect. Because the moment you do, your fate is sealed. And now, we're forced to look at Triple H not just as a wrestling icon, but as a man who may have played the game better than anyone else. A man who saw the chessboard. Who saw what happened to those who stepped out of line. And who chose a different path, one that led not just to championships, but to a seat at the very top of WWE. But at what cost? That's the question no one in the mainstream media is asking. Because they're too afraid. Afraid of losing access. Afraid of poking the bear. Afraid of being blacklisted by the machine that feeds them. But we're not afraid. We exist outside that system. And that's why we're bringing you stories like this. Because the truth matters. Because behind every superstar is a human being. And because if fans truly love this industry, they must also hold it accountable. Now, the Confessor's voice is out there. But it won't be enough, unless you make it matter. So here's what we're asking. Share this story. Spread it across every platform. Don't let it die in the algorithm. Don't let it be drowned out by PR statements and corporate distractions. Call out the silence. Ask the questions no one else will. Demand more from the people who built careers on the ruins of someone else's sacrifice. Because this story isn't just about the past. It's about right now. It's about every young wrestler entering that locker room, believing hard work will be enough. It's about every fan who cheers, unaware of the pain behind the curtain. It's about a future that could be better, if we shine enough light on the truth. And here's the most haunting part: the Confessor isn't alone. There are more stories. More buried careers. More silent victims. And one of them is about to come forward next. That's right. We've been contacted by another former WWE insider. Someone who says this isn't the only time a romantic connection destroyed a career. Someone with documents. W.